Okay, we're going to move over to the years of service tab, and again, this is an employee listing. Here's where we're going to figure out the years of service, which I kind of previewed this in an earlier screencast. Is let's put today's date in up here. So we're going to say equals now, and that'll put in today's date and time actually, and we can just format that so that it shows only the date. Our years of service, once again, will be this cell. We'll put the F4 key to make that an absolute reference, so it always refers to cell H1, minus the date of hire. Now that gives us the number of days that somebody has been employed here. And then we need to divide that by 365. And I guess you could do 365.25 if you wanted to include leap years and be absolutely precise. We'll fill that down, and so the most recent hire we have was just hired a few days ago. They've been here 0.01 of a year, and the most experienced person we have looks like the top person hired in 1991. 21.8 years they've worked at our office. Okay, now we're going to do a couple text functions over here. So this is a listing of which building the people work in, which office number they are in, and then the last 4 digits are their extension. So if we want a column over here of just their phone extension, we can write a formula for that. We can say equals right, and we'll pick the cell here with the office location. We'll do comma 4, and what this will do is it'll grab the last 4 characters, or the rightmost 4 characters in that column. Now it changes them to text, which is why they are left aligned instead of right aligned like a number would normally be. If you really wanted them to be treated as numbers, you could multiply this by 1 at the end, do a times 1, and then it'll right align it and make it a number. So sometimes you want it to retain its state as a number, I guess, depending on the data that you're looking at. You can always multiply it by 1 if you'd rather have that. Now the next thing is we want to grab the building. Okay, so we want lab from here or central from here. Well, how can we do that? Well, what we can do is we want to grab however many digits, or however many characters, sorry, up until there you see the dash. So it's lab dash 02. So the way that we do that is we say left. Now if we just wrote left F4 comma 3, it would grab just the word lab, but of course then when we fill it down, we're only going to grab 3 characters, and that's not what we want to do. So instead of doing the comma 3, we're going to write another function to figure out how many characters do we need to go over from the left side. And what we're going to do is we're going to say find, find and not find. And the text that we want to find is a dash, and you need to put that within quotes. And we're going to find that within cell F4. And then the start number we'll leave blank. We want it to start at the leftmost character, but you could say starting with the 10th character or something like that if you wanted to. Now if we do this, it's going to find lab. It's going to find the first 4 characters, okay? Because the dash is in the 4th character. So this find dash F4 equates to the number 4. Okay, so it's always going to include the dash, which we don't want either. So then the way that we do that is we say take 1 off of that number of characters and then fill that down. And so we've got lab, central, HQ, and so on. Okay, so let's write that from scratch all in one step. We'll say equals left cell F4, and then we want to find a dash or a minus sign within cell F4, and then subtract 1 off of that because we don't want to include the dash in our result. Okay, and there we have it. There's the building number. Okay, we can do the same thing over here. Let's say that we don't want the last name, comma, and then the first name. We want separate columns for last name and first name. Okay, so for last name, we can do exactly what we just did for lab. We can say equals left, go over here to Erica Decker, comma, find, and then now we're going to find a comma within cell B4, minus 1. I just didn't put the closing parentheses on there, and Excel's smart enough to do that. Okay, so now we've got all the last names. Let's say that we don't want that in all caps. We can put our proper around our function. Okay, so now this is last name. First name. How are we going to grab that? Well, we can do this. We can say we can't grab the rightmost so many characters, because if we do that, we'd want the rightmost 5 characters from here and 6 from here and 5 from here and so on. And so what we need to do is we need to find the length of this string. And so what we'll do, let's do it over here in a separate column. We'll say give me the length of this, and it's equals len as length. So that's 13 characters. This is 13, 12, 14. So you see this one's 17 characters with a really long name. Okay, equals the length of the string. And then we can use that comma position again, or actually we could use the space position to find out where the first space is. Well, let's use the comma, that's safer. Just in case somebody had a space in their last name. Some people have that. So let's say equals find, and we'll go over here and we'll find the comma. So the comma, oops, I did that backwards. Equals find, start over, equals find, comma, no, sorry, equals find, comma, and then another comma for our formula within here. Okay, so what this is saying is the comma is at the 7th position in a 13 in a string that's 13 characters long. Okay, so there's a couple different ways that we can do this that I can think of for the first name. The easiest way is probably going to be to use the mid function. And what the mid function does is the left picks the left side of the string, the right picks the right side. The mid will grab something in the middle. Okay, and so what we're going to say is we're going to say go over to Erica Decker's name, comma, and then we're going to start at the 7th character, and we can just go over here to the 7th character because that's where the comma is, and we can add 2 to that so that it actually starts at her first name. And then for number of characters, we can just say like 100. Grab 100 characters, which it will never grab 100 characters because there aren't 100 characters in the string, but just to be safe. So that's one way that we could do that. Okay. Another way that we could do it is we could do this. We can say equals right. And so we want to grab the rightmost text from here, but how many characters do we want to grab? Well, we want to grab the 13 minus the 7. Okay, and actually that grabbed a space as well, and so we can say 13 minus the 7 minus 1 if we want to get rid of the space. Okay. Now, if you wanted to get really technical, instead of writing equals K4 minus L4 in here, as you wouldn't want this 13 to be on your worksheet, you could just take this len B4 and copy it and put that in place here where we had K4. And so that equals len B4. And then you could take this find function, and don't include the equal sign. We're going to paste that where we had L4. Okay. And so here's our formula right here. Now it looks complicated here because it is complicated, but if you write it in steps like this, it's much easier then, because now we can delete this data over here to the right. And it doesn't matter because we've got it all in our formula. But to write that formula from scratch without kind of doing a couple interim calculations on the side would have been even more difficult than it was. So, and then of course, we don't want that all uppercase because we don't have the last name all uppercase, so we'll put the proper around that too, and then fill that down. And now we've got the first name and the last name in separate columns. And now we can even do something like this, equals J4 and a space, so we put the space between the quotes, and the last name. So now we can totally switch around, and we've got the first name and then the last name in proper format with just capitalization on the first letters, rather than the last name, comma, then the first name like we had over here. And then if we want to just copy this, we can do copy and then paste values and just put that in right over the top of our names. Now I'm going to undo that so that when you look at this file later, you'll be able to see these formulas. But that's the kind of things, I mean, very often, especially when you're grabbing data from another system, is it doesn't come over in the format that you necessarily want it to come across in, and you have to do things like this to make things work. Okay, I'm going to stop this screencast for now and go on to the part number lookup on the next screencast.